Hey, welcome back to Casey Cares, the voice of Kansas City nonprofits. We share the story of Kansas City nonprofits and the individuals who drive them. At Casey Cares, we're the intersection of nonprofits in the business sector to enhance the quality of life in Kansas City for both our residents and our visitors. This Casey Cares segment is brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, www.kaufman.org. I'm your host, Ruth Bombigas. Kansas City is pretty lucky. We're surrounded by incredible cultural gems just waiting to be explored. And today, Casey Cares is shining a light on one of the very best, the Kemper Museum of Contemporary Art. Since opening its doors in the mid-1990s, just east of the Country Club Plaza, the Kemper has become so much more than a museum. It's a place where creativity, conversation, and some truly fascinating exhibits come to life. Well, joining us today is the Kemper's Executive Director, Jessica May, who brings a deep and impressive background into the art world. Welcome. We're so glad to have you here.
This is such an honor and delight. I'm glad to meet you and to be part of today's conversation.
And I'm sorry it took us so long to have you on the show. So I'm just delighted that you could be here with us. All right. So I gave a little description of the museum, but you are in the thick and the day to day. Give us your storyline about what the Kemper is all about.
We're actually in a moment when we're really thinking about kind of taglines, and we've been, I won't spoil all the taglines, but we've been thinking so much about the way that art and humans connect. And I think what is kind of so special about the Kemper is, on the one hand, we're an institution that's passionately dedicated to sharing contemporary art with our community. But on the other hand, we're an institution that sees art and creative work in general as an occasion for humans to come together and connect with one another. And so we try and think about our work at the institution as, on the one hand, creating these very special occasions for people to be with one another, and for people to connect with art and creativity in some of its finest, rawest, most contemporary, most experimental forms.
I love that. Your contemporary connection.
We really are, with humans, but also with ideas and with art objects and with food. We can't forget the
Right.
food.
Right, which I have enjoyed at a recent event at the museum, and it
So
was just
glad.
delightful. And we'll go talk about that
Yeah.
in a little bit. But I wanted to also visit kind of the beginnings of the museum
Mhm.
and the uniqueness of that. If you'd be willing to share a little bit about that. This was one
Oh,
person's
delighted.
real brainchild.
Yeah, it's a really special place. So, when Crosby and BB Kemper were thinking about bringing together a collection of contemporary art, they really wanted there to be kind of a home for contemporary art in Kansas City. For a long time, the Nelson Atkins really saw its mission as to collect historic art, which was
Mhm.
which was not atypical for these kind of extraordinary encyclopedic American museums. But the Nelson Atkins was right next to the Kansas City Art Institute, one of the truly great art schools in the country, and an institution that was just churning out some truly fabulous and extraordinary artists. So I think Crosby and Beebe really saw a need for a contemporary art institution that would speak not to the grand legacy of the entire history of art, as the Nelson Atkins does, but really speak to, showcase, profile, and collect great contemporary art. So they had within their vision this dream for a place that would be open, that would be fully welcoming, where there were really no barriers, and I think this is actually important. They envisioned it as having a great restaurant. And that's a little bit unusual. So
Mhm.
there were these. This was a period where, in the second half of the 20th century, in the latter years of the 20th century, where there were other places in this country where truly visionary people were thinking about art museums. But one of the things that I think makes the Kemper so special is that it was envisioned to be a place that would be free for all forever, which is one of the reasons why we have three front doors. There's no hierarchy. There's no one way to come into the institution. And it would be a place where many of your senses were met. So it was intended to be an architectural gem. It was intended to be a place where your eyes would be full of art. It was intended to be a place where you could come and go freely without any sense of like you're supposed to do this. There's one way to experience it. No, it wasn't a temple. And it was intended to be a place where you could have a delicious, beautiful meal and kind of be surrounded by the beauty of the environment. And I think those ideas have really held. You know, the world's changed a lot in 30 years, but the idea of that kind of welcome that is a welcome that's intended to tell visitors, hey, we want you here. Come enjoy this experience and have a sense of freedom in this experience, I think has really stood the test of time beautifully. So we try and be very, very true to that.
When the institution first opened, it had a formal affiliation with the Art Institute.
It did. It did. It was intended to really be part of the Art Institute, um, and you know, I think one of the things that many people in town who know this much better than I'm new to Kansas City, so I'm not
Well, welcome. We're glad you're
Thank
here.
you. But it's a way also of acknowledging that there are stories that many people will have a lot of feelings about that I don't necessarily know. But the institution was intended to be originally fully affiliated and part of the KCAI, and that didn't work real well. It turns out that those kind of institutional partnerships they're quite challenging actually because you know, if you really want to kind of see your vision through, as I believe that Crosby and Beebe did, it's hard to be part of a larger organization, a much larger organization. And so by the end of the 1990s, the organizations were fully separate. And, you know, it would be misleading not to say that there were no hard feelings. But what's glorious now that we're some years beyond that is that we see ourselves as having our art students as our primary constituency. So when we're putting together shows, we're thinking about those students at KCAI. And when we're putting together artist lectures, programs, visits, we're thinking, how can we connect with Kansas City Art Institute? Um, Last year we had a couple of like wonderful occasions where actually their faculty said to us, hey, would you guys do this program? And that allowed us not only to bring a fabulous program to our campus, but it also allowed us to say to students like, this is really your place, come, come, come. So although we are fully independent, we now really see Kansas City Art Institute as a just an absolutely critical partner in everything we do.
So breaking up was a little hard to do. To
I think
steal
so.
a line from a
I think
song.
there were
Well,
a lot of feelings, yes.
but it sounds like
And I respect them.
that it stood the test of time, and both institutions now are able to go to the dance. Okay, I'm sorry, a basketball phrase, but to work together side by side to the benefit of both.
Well, we saw that this past year. I mean, it was interesting. Some viewers may know the story of the Artery, which is the new neighborhood pedestrian passage. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a project that I joined the instant I showed up in Kansas City, which was February 2024, because it was an opportunity for us to develop a pedestrian walkway that would connect Kansas City Art Institute, the Kemper, and the Nelson Atkins. And it was a little curious to me that it had never happened before because it's 3 blocks. I mean, this is the shortest
Right.
pedestrian corridor ever. But I remember when I first came, standing at the front desk at the Kemper and hearing the volunteers who worked at our front desk explain to people how to get over to the Nelson Atkins. And I remember thinking, wow, it's a very short walk. But it didn't feel like such a short walk. And
Mm.
so this experience of working on the artery was really the experience of all of leaders from all the organizations really sitting down and saying, how do we make this walk shorter? how do we formally integrate? How do we have one structure, which is the artery organization, that will actually connect all of us. And I think that felt like a very healing process, but it also felt like this kind of like very ambitious way of saying, hey, like, let's make the most of being neighbors because our audiences should see us as continuous, all of us.
What a collaborative effort.
It was cool. It was really, really special.
And I would venture to guess that a great percentage of people who know about it, if they're coming down and they have time, it's like, okay, well, let's bop over to the Nelson, or the Nelson folks say, let's bop over to the Kemper.
You know, it was, I think that that is what we really want to see. I mean, and Kansas City Art Institute has two galleries. They have a gallery on campus and then they have Art Space, which is just a block north of campus.
Oh,
So if you
okay.
think about that neighborhood, you've
Yes.
got shops at all three sites with Kansas City Art Institute opening Marble and Canvas this next month. So you've got shops all three sites, you've got dining at all three sites, you've got two galleries that are free at KCAI, you've got the Kemper, which is free, and you've got the Nelson Atkins, which is mostly free. So people could really make a day of it. And there's a beautiful park. I mean, Southmoreland Park is a fabulous park. So it really is a district, and I think we all share this goal of making it feel like a district. We want that to just feel fluid and easy, and people move around and they have fun, and it's a time of discovery, because that's what art should really feel like. And that's what being in nature should feel like as well.
What a wonderful, nobody has to go away for spring break. You find a bed and breakfast down there, the parks, it's, just move around with your world-class museums. I do want to switch us though to talking about the art and
Mhm.
what you all feature, and then we can get into a little bit permanent exhibit versus special exhibits.
Yeah. So we do a little bit of everything, but we're always within in the realm of contemporary art. So, the institution was really founded with a mission of bringing the best of global contemporary art to Kansas City. Now, that is a vast mission, but I love the ambition and the simplicity to say we care about quality, we care about connecting this big world of ideas that we live in with our own community. And so we've really hewed to that with one change, and that is in our new strategic plan. We're seeing our role not only, and this goes back to this sense of connection, as not only bringing this kind of vast world of contemporary to Kansas City, which which we do, we see all the time, but also finding those moments in our what we call our program, which is a series of exhibitions over the course of the year, finding those moments in our program where we can also highlight the work of Kansas City artists who we think and we really believe are about to launch into the stratosphere artistically. So that's where sometimes people say, "Oh my goodness, Jessica, too many metaphors," or. But I think of us as a little bit like a train station. Like we've got the trains coming in from all over the world, and then we're trying to send the trains out because every artist needs a first museum exhibition.
Right.
Every artist does. And for a very long time, the Kemper has been a place where our curators and team have really prided themselves on often being ahead of the curve in terms of identifying artists that haven't gotten famous yet. And a huge number of the works that are in our collection are works that are made by artists who showed at the Kemper and then went off to have these unbelievable careers. I mean, just, every museum you can possibly name. And I guess, one right now you might think of as Raven Halfman, who has a show on view at the museum at this very moment. Well, I happen to be sitting um, in New York City, and she also has work on view in the Whitney Biennial. So, it's like, it's a
Wow.
big deal. And she showed with us first, right? So we also feel, in addition to bringing artists who are kind of emerging on the national or international stage, we want artists who are emerging locally and whose lives are going to take them beyond the confines of Kansas City. They're just so good. We want them to know that the Kemper is kind of home base and always will be. So we're trying to combine both of those, bringing the global home and also getting some of the talent that we have in Kansas City and giving those folks their first kind of opportunity to show their work in a permanent collect in a I said permanent collection, but I meant in a museum environment. Now, most of our program is developed in exhibitions. We would love, love, love to be able to have more permanent, what are called permanent collection galleries or collecting
Mm-hmm.
galleries that don't change over as much and that are you really show the opportunity for us to have work from our collection on view at any moment because we have one of the truly great collections of modern and contemporary, primarily but not exclusively American art in our region. I mean, we really have a wonderful collection of art. So, one of the things that I'm going to be looking at in my role in the next few years is how do we build in more opportunities to show the collection as it is? Do we do little pauses between special exhibitions in order to show off our collection? Maybe that would be fun. Can we get a little more gallery space? That would be fun. So how do we actually share with our audiences a little bit more of the really wonderful work that makes up our collection and that we'll be caretaking for generations to come.
How many special exhibits do you do in the course of a year?
About six.
That's
So
a lot.
it really is. It keeps us
I mean,
busy.
I think it is. I mean,
It really is.
that's half
Yeah.
the year that you and I don't want to give short shrift. I'm not a museum employee, but I would not be sure that the audience knows how long it actually takes to pull that all together, all aspects. It's not just like hang in a painting and you're ready, right?
It's true. It's true. So we like to kind of have a staggered scale. So
Mm-hmm.
the exhibitions, so we have a suite of exhibitions that we're working on between 3 and 4 years, which is really how long it takes to put together like a major
Wow.
exhibition. And so when you go into what are called our Charlotte Crosby Kemper galleries, which are our largest galleries, you'll often see shows in there that have a book. Well, a book takes a year to put together. It takes often a year to 18 months to fundraise for a show. When we bring in loans from other institutions, those often take several years to put together. So the research and the design and the book and everything and fundraising really can take multiple years. And often it's not just about the the doing and the getting done, but sometimes when you're working on an exhibition that's quite ambitious, you also want to spend time thinking about it and talking to the artist and growing into a relationship because it's really sometimes the softer moments in the development of a project that really make it glow in the end. So we like to have certain shows that really have some maturity to them. There are projects that we'll put on view that come together much more quickly. So, for instance, this fall, we're working with a local artist and community advocate, cultural worker named Amy Kligman. And Amy's working with us, and she's going through a large selection of our permanent collection in order to put together kind of an artist selects exhibition. So it will feel
Hmm.
like a special exhibition and it will be very special, but it will be a collection that's rooted in one artist's perspective on our collection. So, that's a 6-month project. And I like to have projects that are short and long because short projects can be very responsive. They don't get too fancy, nothing's too precious about them, but they can often just feel rich with immediacy. And I think for visitors, that can be so wonderful. But then other projects, you want the whole thing to sing. You want it to have the lustrousness and the maturity of an opera, and that takes a lot of time.
I would be remiss if we didn't talk about an exhibit that you currently have going on that does tie
Oh,
into
yes.
what is going to be happening. Okay, we dated ourselves a little bit, but what Kansas City will be part of in the summer of 2026, and that's the World Cup. And you have an exhibit called The World in Kansas City. Tell us about that and how that's come together and
Yeah.
what's part of that.
This is a project that is so dear to my heart. Our chief curator, Jessica Hong, who I just think I have such a world of respect for her because she walked in the door about 15 months ago and she started going to artist studios. You know, Jessica is just truly an artist curator, and she really saw and sees her role as being somebody who's a passionate advocate for artists in this creative community. So she started going to artist studios, and on the one hand, she had in her head this thing that was going to happen in the summer of 2026, which is the World Cup. And on the other hand, she had in her head, wow, so many people come from all over the world to Kansas City to build their creative lives. Either they go to the Kansas City Art Institute, or maybe they work at Hallmark, or maybe their family emigrated here. But she started realizing that within the large community of artists working in Kansas City, there was an incredible richness of artists who either maybe their parents emigrated, maybe they've emigrated, but who have come from an influence from all over the globe and have made this either their full-time home or their part-time home. And so, as we were thinking, we didn't want to be too on the nose. Nobody really needs to see an exhibition full of soccer balls. I mean, I would love to see an exhibition full of soccer balls, but that didn't feel like the right way for a contempt. That felt a little bit like maybe we would be trying too hard. So we wanted to think about an exhibition that would be a little subtler, but that would allow us to show our community to itself through a global lens. And so Jessica started saying, well, there are all of these artists from all over the world who are here, who are making their creative life here. And so she began bringing them together and socializing this idea. And lo and behold, we have this exhibition with over a dozen artists, most of whom fully live here. A couple have passed, a couple have moved away since their time in Kansas City. From everywhere on Earth. Maybe there's no Antarctica contingent to this exhibition, but otherwise, all over the world. And young, old, you name it. But what unifies these artists is the fact that this is a creative home for them. And so we thought this was really a wonderful way to take pride in our region while also showing off a bit to our visitors. And the show has been so welcomed. I mean, it's been so fascinating to see not just the generational pride of artists who bring their families and friends, but also the pride of a community that's sort of going in saying, oh my God, this is made here. This is fabulous. So that has been really, really special. And also, I'll just say for me personally, um, we're living in an America right now that's not always so excited about people who've come from far away. And to be in a community where our board stepped up, our committees stepped up, our members stepped up, our docents stepped up, our staff, there's been this joy of welcoming um, artists who have chosen this place. And that has meant the world to me, frankly. That's sometimes I think, oh, this is what art can do. It can unify us.
Hmm. That's wonderful. When you do these things, is there ever an extension, for example? I mean, this is supposed to end by the end of summer, but do you ever say, well, this was such a hit, we're going to keep it longer? Or do you not have that flexibility? Because it sounds like you have a lot of other programs.
Well, some museums will do that. I mean, last year we saw, I think our friends over at the Nerman actually had an exhibition that was just so popular that they did extend it. So that sometimes does happen. Um, the biggest there is always the multi-year schedule that you put together, so that's a
Hmm.
little bit sometimes of a disincentive. And I have seen exhibitions get extended and loved it when it happens. I will say that often when you're putting together an exhibition, you're borrowing art from people's homes. And
That's true.
and I have had conversations with people who've said, I want to support you, but I really miss this work of art in my life. So we'll see. I would just advise everyone to come see the show now. Come see it, over the course of the spring and summer of 2026. But you never know. We're always interested in who wants to see what.
Where is the best place to find out information on what exhibits are coming up, what events might be taking place?
Kemperart.org. Kemperart.org. So we do, so that, our website is the unifying, I would say very easy if folks are on Instagram to plug into Instagram. A lot shows up on Instagram. What's wonderful about Instagram is that there's Kemper Museum, which is, the official museum website, and then there's Kemper Teens. So we have a cohort called the Teen Arts Council, which is an annual group of
Wow.
teenagers. There are 17 of them, and they plan their own events for other teenagers. So
So cool.
it's the best thing. I mean, my staff always teases me because everything I'm excited about is the very best thing, but the teenagers really are the best thing. They are so wonderful because they plan all these events for their own peers. And my favorite event over the course of the year comes in April, and that's teen careers in art night, where they invite people from the community who have made a career, sometimes a non-traditional career, somewhere in the arts, and who figured out how to make a living. And they come and they give a little talk, and then they do a workshop with teenagers and their parents. So it's the most wonderful event, because it's so hopeful and it's so empowering. We say, like, I was studied art history in college. They say, don't study art history. You'll never do anything with it. I mean, it's what you get teased about on NPR is all
Right,
the
right,
story of a job. But actually, think about all the wonderful things you could do with art history or design
right.
or all of these things. So anyhow, go to kemperart.org to find out what we're doing overall. Instagram is a great resource. We do 97 public programs last year. So
Oh,
in
wow.
2025. So we'll probably hit somewhere in that same number this year. So that means Saturday conversations with the docents. It means the French English language exchange club. It means artist lectures. It means we do an event where we bring in artists in partnership with Charlotte Street. So Charlotte Street studio artists come to the Kemper and they talk about how other artists on view inspire them. It's everything you can imagine. There are maker nights, there are sales at the store. So kemperart.org is really the key.
Jessica, this has been a delight. Thank you for opening the 3 doors for us, at least in conversation, to talk about all things Kemper art. We just wish you the very best. Go check out kemperart.org. If you're sitting at home and say, what can we do? It's a great place to go look. There's plenty to do, and colorful and inspiring and creative. So thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you. What a joy to be here.
And thank you for joining us on KC Cares. We're produced by Charitable Communications, which is also a nonprofit. This KC Cares segment was brought to you by the Ewing, Marion Kaufman Foundation, www.org. Now, if you'd like to be a guest or to check out other things about our podcast, go to our website, kccaresonline.org, and spread the love. You'll find us on Facebook and Twitter at KC Cares Radio and Instagram at KC Cares Online. And don't forget, you can catch us Saturday mornings on ESPN 1510 AM and 94.5 FM. That's at 8 o'clock in the morning. Thanks for joining us on KC Cares.